is my sound? Sound seems to be working. Got my tea. My tea is very warm. Whew. Okay. Mood lighting. Yeah. Yeah, I usually have my big light here or just have my windows open, but it's dark in Seattle starting at 4. I haven't set up my light yet, so we're gonna have a little faded into the background. Just being sassy. Ha! Mood lighting. Oh my gosh. I'm still super out of it. Got back from the design retreat on Sunday. Been trying to catch up on sleep since then, but it's taking time. Design retreat was very much staying up all night and then getting up early to drive around the main countryside, visiting people. It was good. It was fun. Some of you checked in while I was at the retreat. Didn't get the Twitch streaming to work, but I tried streaming on Twitter, and that was pretty fun, pretty effective. I don't think it's necessarily what I want to do for my main stream, because it's a little harder to interact with people. I'm not sure yet how people can comment on it. In mobile, I don't think people can comment on it easily, but that's fun. It works. Takes up a little less internet than regular Twitch streaming, so all of that is good and worth experimenting with. So yeah, let's work on some games, make some game stuff. I figured today might talk a little bit about the game I'm working on called You Look Awful. It's a hard game to talk about because, say, people will ask, what are you working on? Or what games do you want to play test? And my response will be, you look awful. And I'm like, no, it's not. I don't mean that you as a person look awful. It's just the game is called You Look Awful. It's very weird to talk about, but my co-designer, Javion, is very wedded to the name, and I think it could potentially be a catchy name, so we'll see how it goes. I have my card spreadsheet over here. Figure out what the best way to display this is gonna be. It's up to you if the lighting mood you're going for is intimate or creepy. Yeah, one of those two things. It's intimate. It's a cozy lighting, right? That's what we're gonna say. This is how we're gonna call it. Best homonym ever. You look awful. That's a good one. That's really great. You look awful. Wow. Awful. Oh my gosh, that's great too. For those of you who don't know, oh man, awful is guts, right? That's like if a cat murders a rabbit on your doorstep and leaves the guts behind. I'm pretty sure that's what that word means. Is that a dryer running in the background? Oh my gosh, I didn't think the sound was gonna pick up, but yes it is. I'm drying my coat. Let me know if it gets too annoying, because I can... Oh, awful is guts you eat. Okay, good to know. Good to know. Actually, I think I'm going to just close the bathroom door. Be right back. I don't know not much that's gonna help because I'm drying a very. I waited until during my stream to dry a particularly noisy piece of clothing. Hopefully it's not too much, too annoying. Me. Cool. Hope y'all are doing well. Hope you're, I realize it's been a couple of weeks. It's been so long. It's been a week since PAX Unplugged. Got to hang out a little bit. That was fun. I'm sure everyone else has recovered since then. For me, it's just been one long design, game, business focused thing. I'm actually looking forward to the holidays, maybe taking a little bit of a break. That'd be fun. Speaking of which, looking at my calendar, I'm like, yeah. I'm going to call it now, I'm not going to be streaming next week on Christmas Eve. I know that's going to be rough for everyone. Everyone's going to really miss watching my stream the night before Christmas, but I think it'd be good to take a little bit of a break. Breaks are good. Breaks keep us strong. No issues with the dryer. Almost sounded like a nightclub was next door. Yeah, either a nightclub or a dryer, you know. Just in the back room. I'm here streaming board game design. And in the other room, there's a cool party going on, because that's what we do here. Party. That was funny. I was talking about the board game design retreat. I was mentioning to people, that we basically were acting crazy. We were acting like unsupervised children during the retreat. And the way that I said it made it sound like we were just partying the whole time, which I suppose we were. If by partying you mean playing broken board games until 4 a.m, because we were staying up very late, but we were playing broken board games and making incredibly dumb jokes because we hadn't been sleeping enough, and we thought everything was really funny. I'm not going to say what the jokes are, because in the light of day they're probably not as funny as we thought they were. Game Honest is going to live tweet my whole evening, as I said, bored with no stream to watch on Christmas Eve. Senior Bob says it was cool to hang out with you at PAX for a bit. Yeah, it was super cool. I'm really appreciative that you stopped by and hung out and checked out those factions that we played. Yeah, PAX Unplugged was very hectic. It's actually a very interesting convention for me, in that I think for the last few conventions it's really made me stop and think what exactly it is that I'm getting out of conventions. I think in the beginning, when you're just getting started in the industry, it's easy to think, you're still learning and figuring out, I want to go to all the conventions, meet all the people, maybe do a panel, show off, do some unpub slots, and just, you start building up those things, and then you start getting to know people and doing events with people, going out after hours. And eventually for me, for board game conventions, I've gotten to the point where there's too much stuff. There's too many people I want to see, too many things I want to do, just an infinite number. I would need the convention to be a week or longer in order to get everything done. So it's interesting. I think, like Senior Bob, you being able to hang out and play games together and chat, that's really the core of what I'm looking for from these convention experiences, because everything else, testing games, doing certain types of meetings, there's a few things like that I don't necessarily have to be at a convention to do, or I can figure out ways throughout the year to do, or even working on games especially. Sometimes I get into it and think to myself like, oh, I'm just going to stay in my hotel room and finish this game so I can get it tested. But that can definitely be a trap to fall into. We're like, oh, I got to get this game tested so I can show it off. So long story short, I definitely want to refocus on what I'm looking for from conventions, hanging out with people, just spending a lot of face-to-face time and developing stronger connections with people in the industry, because I think that's where you eventually get to working with people, co-designs. You might be hanging out with publishers and establish a relationship that way. So I've been thinking a lot recently about how I want to dedicate my energy and the best use of my time and energy. And PAX Unplugged was definitely, because it was very tense. It was very stressful for me with everything I had going on and volunteering for extra things and just feeling like I was going in a million different directions. And part of that is with things like the game design stream, the game design retreat and things like that, is finding out how to best focus my energy outside of conventions and work on designing things, making more space in my day-to-day living to finish all the work that I want to get done working on games, and then I'll have more time not at conventions to work on things, and then at conventions do some of the stuff that you can only do at conventions. Just laying out some of my You Look Awful cards. I was actually able to print out all the abilities on the cards, cut them up, test it, find out it was broken, do it all over again, make another print run of the game. I don't want to put this. So I made some progress on that, because this was the one where you're taking cards from other players from their hands and spending those as a currency, a little bit of a deck building element to it. Very weird structurally, and the kind of thing that can easily fall apart, and did easily fall apart. Deck, spent, steal, person. Alright, I think I have 5 different abilities for this one. This is a normal fashion. Yeah. Yeah, maybe I should just bring up the spreadsheet so we can look at this. Senior Bob says, I imagine more like an unsupervised kindergarten class. Yes, very much so. So we were talking about the game design retreat and being kind of crazy and loopy. And eventually came, I was like, oh, so you weren't crazy like you were partying. You were crazy like high schoolers. High schoolers or grade schoolers. Much better way to put it. Alright, so let's just go into talking a little bit about You Look Awful, the game, not you. I can't see you, so I'm not talking about you, the viewers looking awful, but the game. The game is called You Look Awful. Talk a little bit about my thought process with this game, where it's currently at, my goals for continuing to work on it, and see if I can have some breakthroughs right here on stream. Because it feels close. Not close to being done. I've only really been working on it over the past week or two, even though I've been percolating in the back of my brain for a while. But I feel it's the kind of game that if I do get it to a place where it's not broken, that'll be fun. weird and different from other things that are out there. And like with artichokes, I could definitely see it taking a long time to develop and hone and get into a place where it just feels really smooth and really good. But I think it can get there. The one thing that's tripping me up a little bit here, let me go back to the dock. So right now, mechanically, if I can demo it on screen, let's say that I have, so I got some super fashions and an ultra fashion in my hand. The person, one of the other people playing the game, would take one of these cards in my hand to use that as currency. So, for example, the way I have it now is you have to take the highest card in someone else's hand because I want people to step down through the market. So if you take an ultra fashion, you can get the next lowest thing, which is a super fashion, and so on and so forth. Ultra fashion and super fashion are negative points, so -2 points and -1 point, respectively. That's coming out pretty good. So it's weird because you have to take something that's not great for you. So it's worth a lot of currency, but not worth a lot of points. And that might be an incorrect direction for the game. Let's say assumptions for goals for. So one thing I've noticed a lot with my own game design recently is kind of holding on to things stronger than is necessarily good, because I feel that that thing is a core part of the game. So for example, with Factions, a chip stacking game that I'm working on, where you're trying to bluff and hide things at different levels in the stack of chips, I was super beholden to this idea that you couldn't have more than one stack of the same faction. So I have some of the chips here. I have like a bird faction and a scorpion faction. So for factions, you have symbols on the back of the chips to represent the different factions. I just had in my head that, you would never have 2 stacks with scorpions in them. I'll get some more chips to make it look like a stack. Yeah. In part because I had a map-like board laid out where the chips would sit on. So there's only one section for each chip. So I was like, no, you can't have multiple piles because that's weird. And I kept going on and on through the tests and having so beholden to this one particular rule, which I ended up breaking during the design retreat because we were trying to blow the game out and open up the design space for it. And in the end, it just turned out that that rule wasn't, it was something that was just fixated in my head. More so than necessary. Ooh. Senior Bob subscribed at tier 1. Thank you very much, Senior Bob. Also says only visible to me. I got an emote thanks to your subscription. So cool. I do have to figure out the emotes thing with the subscribers now. I know that's super important to y'all. Jeff 2.0 asks, why is it broken? I assume this is in relation to You Look Awful. It's broken in a couple of ways. So, assumption, higher value, fashion, to be worth. So a couple of things are broken about the game as with the rules that I have them as stated. So right now, you can take you can purchase one thing per turn. You can take your currency, which is a card in someone else's hand. You can take it from any player, but from that particular player, you have to take the highest value fashion, which is worth the least amount of points, which is kind of an anti-tension there. So if I'm player 1 and player 2 has another hand and player 3 it's their turn, as player 1, this is my hand. So, you know, they might say like, oh, I'm going to spend this. So this high value, negative points goes into their discard pile. And I don't refill my hand during the turns. So in that case, I just have the 2 super fashion cards left. And now when it's the next player's turn, they're going to look at my hand and they're going to have, depending on number of players, multiple people to choose from. But they're probably going to take from me, because if the person next to me has a bunch of ultra fashion, for example, they don't want the high value negative points cards in their hand. They want cards that are worth more points or less negative points. So because super fashion is $3 and only -1 points, and ultra fashion is -2 points, strategically you're just not going to want to pull this ultra fashion into your hand. So instead you're going to take the super fashion, and that ends up, so you could take this one, and then the next person, everyone still has the same hands, so instead of taking, again, everyone has a hands where ultra fashion is the highest card they have to take, so you're going to take again from this person, and now over that course of that turn, one person has lost 3 cards and everyone else's hands haven't changed. So what's most broken about it now is the incentives for taking cards from other players. One player ends up losing all their cards, has a deck of 1 or 2 cards, which isn't super fun for them, especially since some of the cards activate when they're taken from your hand. So here where it says when this is spent, if someone takes a normal fashion card from my hand, this one, steal a card from the person targeting you. So they take this and I get to steal a card from their hand. So yeah, some of them have an ability that happens when it's taken, but others have an ability like the super fashion on your turn. If your hand is all normal low fashion, add a low fashion card to your discard. The low fashion, those are 2 points, the most amount of points in the game. So that's kind of sucks, right? If they take this from me, I lose the ability to do the thing that's on the card. So part of this is how I have it now with the negative points. I did the negative points because I want to give a reason to trash cards. Yeah, so higher value fashion has to be worth negative points, so people will really want to trash them. Because in a normal deck building game, you want to trash things because they give you fewer actions. Again, the reversals in this game is making it super hard for me to wrap my head around, which is good because I think cracking this design challenge is going to lead to a really interesting gameplay. But in a normal deck building game, you have your starter cards, which are just not very powerful, and then you build into more and more powerful cards, and as you're doing so, and again, this is you're building your own deck, so you don't have this aspect of taking things from other people's decks and mixing them in with your deck. So in a normal deck building game, you just accelerate yourself by trashing cards. Accelerate your gameplay and make it likely you'll draw better stuff by getting rid of your starter cards. So in this game, you almost don't want to trash those high ones unless you make it a negative point, because if I am cycling into this on other people's turns, if I have this high value card, as the rules are stated, they would have to take this, and then they can only get something of equal ultra fashion or lower ability. So they can only go into the super fashion. However, if I trash things and only had a bunch of normal fashion cards in my hand, they could spend that to get equal or lower, which is the low fashion cards, which is just worth a ton of points. So it's in an interesting place now where I'm trying to figure out the incentives for the experience curve that I'm trying to create in this game. I'm going to write that down in goals as I'm saying it so you can read it and hear it at the same time. Goal is to create an experience curve where players are adding interesting power cards to their hands. And eventually transitioning into the boring points cards. Which I guess is pretty par for the course for a deck builder game. And in a lot of deck builder games, that part isn't super fun. Dominion, for example. Not to hate on Dominion, I think it's a super fun game, and it created the genre, which is super cool. But from a modern perspective, looking at Dominion, you have all cards that let you buy a bunch of stuff, have a bunch of actions, trash things. And then you get the cards that just don't do anything and are worth points. And at a certain point, you need to load up your deck with these points cards in order to win the game, which tapers off you doing a lot of the actions of the game. And your mom says, "You're welcome. You do a lot for the community." Thank you. Hobo fashion. Yeah, exactly. It's the rebirth of grunge. I love that. Yeah, just playing around with the theming of this game is going to be super fun. That's another reason I'm excited about it. Jeff 2.0 says, as you get picked on, you become even more attractive to be picked on. Yes, exactly. You have put this more succinctly than I was putting it. If you lose your clothes, do you become the emperor? Maybe in the crossover version, I'll have to tap Jonathan Liu and see if we can do a crossover between this and Emperor's New Clothes. Ultra fashion equals carrying a mannequin head in your hand. Yeah, I think that's... the art, again, I'm trying to work on the mechanics. I'm working really hard not to get caught up in deciding the flavor of the fashion, which is a very hard challenge for me because I want to look up and see. It's funny because I have the pizza shirt as the low fashion, and there's Lady Gaga with the meat dress, right? So is it low fashion? Is it high fashion? Do fashions wrap back around where low becomes high? Who even knows? So much fun design space to play around in. pizza shirt goes to back around to low fashion. Blue steel, baby. Low fashion is more points because it completes the goal of looking awful. Yes, Jeff, exactly. Yeah, so, I mean, that's an important thing that I didn't really talk about. So the goal of this game, the ultimate goal, is to, so this is the experiential goal, the mechanical goal, I should say, is to look the worst. Like you have 3 pairs of pants and no shirts, or just googly eyes stuck all over you. Transition from high fashion into low. Become a thrift store junkie. So go from being a fashionable person to all of a sudden having the worst looks, and maybe by having the worst looks you have the best looks. And hence the title of the game, You Look Awful. Why, thank you. Competing to get to the bottom. You know, it's interesting. It's an interesting question, though, because, again, as for prototyping, I have the dollar amounts and the point amounts. I have them numerical just so that I can eventually tweak those dials and say, you know, maybe one normal fashion item is worth $2 or 2 points to, because turns out I've learned from making a game with no numerical values that you can make a game much more, you have much more control over the tweaks you're putting in a game if you have numbers you can dial up and dial down. But maybe it should be more of a set collection thing. Because it is something, and I talk about this a lot, that this idea of victory points, and you're doing fun things in the game. You're taking cards from someone else, you're adding clothes to your outfit, you're trashing clothes, like setting them on fire, whatever it is thematically. And then you get to the end of the game and just do a lot of counting or math. Yeah, that's a good question. And it could be, I could drop the points values even lower so that everything is negative points except the pizza shirts. And that way, and if they're all just worth 1 point, you count up all the low fashion cards you have, it's still victory points. And you can't have as much granular control over it, but it feels more like, oh, you can just compare pile sizes, which is kind of nice. It feels just a little less mathy. Super weird to think about too, right? Even just going from 2 points to 1 point on a thing, it's just number of cards that are left. And that can be a little simpler and easier to visualize how well you're doing in the game. Low fashion is 1 point. Normal fashion is 0 points. I also might not need as many different types of fashion. I haven't even gotten out the high fashion cards. So right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different types. I might end up just getting rid of the ultra fashion and super fashion potentially as well. Because another tricky part of where the game is now is I'm kind of trying to force people down through the tiers. So each of these is set into different markets. So you have the super fashion market, high fashion market, normal fashion market. And then you just have a pile of low fashion cards because they're all the same. So you have your markets. I guess the light is a little bright here. You might not be able to read them. If you want me to read the abilities, just let me know. Yeah, so the idea is you have these markets that you can purchase from, and the cards have different abilities. And as you step down the tiers of fashion, you're getting less interesting stuff that you're doing. Although I recently reversed it so there's more interesting stuff at the bottom tier. So I think a lot of it just comes down to tweaking the individual powers. Start out being able to do cool, powerful stuff. Then as the game, you do less interesting stuff. And the game is over, which is a really weird experience curve for a game to tell people. It's like, hey, you can do all this fun stuff in the beginning, and then it gets less fun. I don't want it to get less fun. I just want there to be phases of mechanics, I guess is a good way to put it. So right now we have the normal fashion cards, which are second to the last tier that you're going to go through. And these are now trap cards. So you're not doing as much interesting stuff actively with the things in your hand. But other people are triggering effects by spending the things in your hand. Yeah. Another thing from my tests that I did during the design retreat is I had broken out the different categories of fashion so you kind of know what's happening in each one. So for normal fashion, these are all trap cards. And trap cards is when someone takes it from you, the effect goes off. And all of them were trap cards. All of the super fashion cards were play from hand abilities. And then high fashion was the mix of the two. But I could potentially just take out super fashion. Just do yeah. Ideas. So if I take out super fashion, then make high fashion and normal fashion each have some trap cards and some. That would make the game go faster as well. And then starting hand. Determines a lot of the gameplay experience. So that's been a tricky thing. It's just it's hard to test the game without really figuring out what that starting hand is, because and the core rules of the game. So you can only take certain cards, or you fill up your hand, or you discard your cards to cycle through them. So it's part of the brokenness of where the game is now. Is just I don't have the core rules and the starter cards down to launch people into this experience. For example, my first test, I just said with a card for even super fashion, I was like high fashion -1 point. So that was supposed to be 2. I wrote those cards incorrectly. I didn't even notice. with the super fashion in the first test of the game, you could do anything that was less than $3, which ended up being people just loaded up on the pizza shirts. So instead of stepping down through the tiers like I wanted them to, they're like, these are the points. I don't care about abilities. I'm just going to load up on points. So I'm trying to break them of doing that. Which is weird. Which is a weird incentivization, right? It would be cool if they wanted. Like, I want to make them want to get all the different types of fashion and not go straight for the lowest fashion. So that's a tricky thing that I need to figure out how to incentivize, which is weird because they're the only ones that are worth points. So if you want to get points, if your goal is to get points in a game, points are usually used as a breadcrumb to encourage people into a certain style of gameplay. Then just by having the low fashion cards be the only ones that give you points, it's cross incentivization, you know, not incentivizing the gameplay correctly, which is tricky. Tricky because I don't want the things that are fun to play to be worth points. Don't load up too much on cards. They're the only ones worth points. So I think that's the core of it right now. Trying to make people go through this labyrinth to get to the cards that actually give them points. But I want them to have fun in that process. I want the journey to be fun. To be fun, exciting, harrowing. I want there to be reasons for having certain types of cards in your hand / deck. Here's something. Because people are asking, because right now it's all shirts. There's actually no pants in the game. Like, why are there no pants in the game? It's like, I don't have pants yet. So maybe there's a set bonus for having an outfit, shirt, pants, hat, shoes, whatever, in your hand. Maybe there are more pants in Norman fashion. New thing, Norman fashion. Normal fashion, for example, to incentivize not going straight for low fashion. Yeah, so that's really the core of it, is working out the incentivization and giving reasons. Maybe there's different low fashion cards that do different things. That could be interesting. Before, since people can't spend the low fashion cards and they don't do anything, once you had a handful of low fashion cards, you'd just be sitting there not doing anything, which I don't think is necessarily great. But having further disincentivizations for getting low fashion too early, like maybe if they actively work against you in some way. Disincentivize into them early. You have to go into them at just the right time. Build up your low fashion acceptance engine. Sure. And what's tricky about this, or a game that's structured like this, is you still need the game to go towards an endpoint, to go towards conclusion. So you could say, oh, if your hand is full of low fashion, you add more high fashion cards to your deck. But that will just potentially keep the game going on forever, infinitely, forever. Forever. I love where this game is going because it just feels super evil. I could have a rule that says if your hand is all low fashion, trash a low fashion card from your hand. That'll keep it going, right? Kind of like that. There might have to be... So right now the end condition for the game is if I can't buy anything. And I only can't buy something when everyone's hands are full of low fashion cards. So I look at everyone's... I can't spend any of their hands. I kind of like that as an end condition. But it does get weird for ensuring the game ends. So I don't know. I'll have to mess around with that and think about that. Derelict. An all paper doll dress. Where do vintage bell buttons with embroidered flowers on the cuff go? You see, just to tap into theme for a while, I don't want to hate on anything. This is where my co-designer and I are having a little bit of tension because I don't want to make anyone feel bad for their fashion choices. So it might not be, I might have to fight with him over calling it "you look awful." You look different, maybe? Because I want to get all those funny quote-unquote clothes in there, but I don't want to judge anyone based on their fashion choices. It's tough. Looking awful is in vogue, which really means you look good. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm going for. Definitely see set collection, completing outfits. Yeah, that's a dial that I haven't played around with yet, so... See, y'all are helping me already and coming up with all sorts of great ideas. Garanimal style ensemble creation. I remember matching pants and shirts based on the critter code on them when I was a kid. So I went, what is this critter code thing? This is like a system for putting together outfits as a child? Because this sounds fantastic and I've never heard of it before and it sounds great. Jeff 2.0 says, have you considered the idea that instead of stealing a card from another player, that you have to trade a card with another player and perhaps constrain trades to replacing only low or higher? I had not considered that. So I was wondering if the taking a card was just completely broken, and another idea I had for that was instead of taking a card from someone's hand, you would just make them discard that card. So you'd say, like, that one goes in your discard pile. What it doesn't accomplish is this swapping of cards between decks, which I really like. But the trading could work. Because you're still taking stuff. And the trade maybe makes a little more sense thematically as well, because that's another question I didn't quite get to, but I was thinking about as I was discussing this. Does it matter? Does there need to be a reason that taking a card from someone gives you currency to buy another outfit? And maybe having the trade makes more sense. Like, oh, we're trading this, and I get something extra in the trade, or I get a trade bonus, and maybe that's the extra stuff you're adding to your deck. So I like that. There's some fun stuff to play around with there. Test out. Or lower or higher fashion. Instead of straight taking them from the other person's hand. And that would definitely help with the deck thinning issue, where people's decks get thinned out of existence. Cool. Yeah, solve the pylon issue. Absolutely. That is a good idea. Zin PhD says, is there a tableau showing what you are currently wearing? You could swap out cards in the tableau to change your deck configuration. Damn, all sorts of great ideas today. Let me think about that for a second. That is a very interesting space to explore. Because right now, you just have your closet. Okay, wait. No, I have this. Maybe your hand is... Okay, this is super weird. Okay. It's okay. Your hand is what you're currently wearing. Your deck is your closet. Your discard pile is your other closet. Or drawers, or laundry pile, or whatever. Shoot. I like this, but also that's weird that you're taking clothes off of people. I don't think that would... I don't know if logistically I can make a game in which you're taking, like, someone's pants. You're taking someone's pants from them, ... Okay. So, Zin PhD, I think the tableau might be better for this case. For the tableau being your outfit and people don't interact with your tableau. Better for what you're currently wearing so people aren't actively taking clothes off you, which has really bad connotations. Tears of fashion. Oh, tears, because I said tears of fashion. Yeah, that's a good name too. I like that. Huh. And if we do play around with the tableau idea, we could even work that into scoring, so it's not even necessarily what's in your deck. So it's even less like a traditional deck builder where you're counting up all the points left in your deck, and it's more about the outfit you've created at the end of the game. That could work. That's interesting. Scoring could be based on the outfit you created in your tableau. Not have to count up all the points in your deck / discard. Cool. No idea how that would actually work in implementation, but I like the idea. All right, serious idea. Senior Bob, I'm going to take your word for it. A card ability can be to make a certain fashion accessory type unpopular. Okay. So some fungibility in the clothing market. I always use the word fungibility. I don't know if I'm using it correctly. Fungibility is the property of a good or commodity whose individual units are essentially interchangeable and each of its parts is indistinguishable from another part. I don't think fungibility is the word I'm looking for. clothing item, desirability, awfulness, flexibility is probably. I think I just like the word fungible, and I try to make it mean what I think that it should mean because I want to use the word. That's not really how language works. Alright. Flexible throughout the game instead of fixed. I have no idea how I'd be able to track that, but there's more to play around with that way. Type unpopular. Yeah. If they ask where the pants are, just say this. Oh gosh. My favorite color. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Thank you, Game Biologist, for that. That was great. Jeff 2.0 says, it feels like a big part of the game is going to be timing the end properly. Yeah, absolutely. I want it to be a fairly fast-paced game. Something along the magnitude of my game Abandon All Artichokes. I think that's going to be a good curve. Maybe a little more complex. I feel like I'm leaning a little bit more into complex concepts with what's happening here. I think the actions of the game are still going to be pretty straightforward. You take a card, then you take another, or you trade. If we decide to go in the swaps direction, swap a card, then take a card, add that to your deck, do stuff. So the complexity of the individual actions isn't necessarily that high, but the strategic complexity might be fairly high. Complexity level, maybe a little higher than Banal Artichokes. I'd say mostly because it's a more strategic game, whereas Banal Artichokes is more tactical. So for my game Banal Artichokes, you're taking cards from the garden, doing what it says on the card. From round to round, you're building your deck, but you don't have a ton of control over what's in there. So it's very tactical. You do as much as you can on a turn. You don't really think too much about your future turns. But with this one, trying to get the curve just right is going to take some strategic planning. And from a design perspective, getting people to actually follow that curve is going to be really interesting. If the values of the individual clothes aren't exactly fixed, if they are flexible, there could be an interesting component of wanting to dig through the clothes deck. Component. Looking for particular pieces for their characteristics and not just their So that's interesting. As I have it now, everything has abilities on it, and I'm focusing more on ability, like deck manipulation abilities really is what it comes down to. Let me put this up in ideas. Move a little away from 100%, focus on deck manipulation abilities. Get into market manipulation abilities for just the right piece to complete your look. Because I was trying to balance the game just around the things you would do with the cards. So your traditional stuff of drawing more cards, filtering your hand, discarding, then drawing, trashing cards in a lot of different ways, giving cards to other people. I buy something and then, or you have to buy something and I buy something of a lower tier than you. So I realize in part I have a good sense of, in a deck building game, the kinds of manipulation abilities you might want. But there's a good chance that the core of this might be separate from perfecting those abilities. Whoa, there's more cards here than I expected. Because just making a highly tuned deck builder game that does the stuff that deck builders do isn't my intention with this game. So there could be other vectors to explore other than fun deck building actions. A lot of stuff to think about here. This is great. I'm excited. You look totally Rufus. Is that good or bad? I don't know. Rufus seems good. I want to look like Rufus. I don't know what Rufus looks like, but I feel like I would want to. That's so last year. Also an excellent name. I think if I come up with a good enough name, Javion might be flexible on it, but he really likes You Look Awful. Trading with set collection would make some really interesting decisions for what to give back. It's true. That's a good point. This is my era of Garanimals. Alright. I'm not going to watch that now, but I'm excited about it. Using an existing word in a new context with a different meaning is exactly how language works, and how we get things like flammable and inflammable meaning the same thing. Fungible sounds like a new kid's snack or clothing line. Totally Rufus. Oh, this won't let me look up the thing. Oh, okay. No, I know. Never been kissed. Okay. Definitely don't intend to make you feel old, game biologist. I don't know any slang from any era. I was never good at or knowledgeable about slang. So it's more me. It's not that I don't know certain eras, it's that I just don't know any era. Game biologist says, so now I'm thinking about a theme of little kids go to school where their parents dress them in but trade clothes with their friends when they get there because their friends are wearing what they like. Scoring based on how impressed your parents are. Let me guess. How impressed your parents are when you get home after having given away all your clothing. 0 to -% impressed. That's so last year. Seems like a great name. Okay. I'm gonna say, can we do this without dating the game? Maybe with fashion coming back around? Because I want to make sure that, you know, if someone's playing this 5 or 10 years from now, maybe, you never know, that it would still be, maybe it would be an artifact. What are we going to be wearing 5 to 10 years from now? I know what we're going to be wearing. We're going to be wearing ultra fashion space helmets, space fashion. I mean, sadly that is not a thing yet. That is, sorry, it's a little bit of sidebar, but that is my ideal fashion genre, is how people look in sci-fi movies. I think any sci-fi movies. Like, when are we going to get to the point, like, we keep passing through the years when the sci-fi movie was supposed to have occurred. But we never get to that sweet future fashion with the Fifth Element, you know, with just like the extra puffy bits on the sleeves, or, you know, really cool fancy hairdos. That's where I want to live. I want to live in that kind of a fashion world. Cool. I like that that's so last year over You Look Awful. Because I think a lot of the core of the fun is kind of poking gentle fun at different fashion trends. Without necessarily calling out people who wear and like those things. Because, oh, excuse me, fry burp. There's a lot of things that go into what people wear. I'm going to wax philosophical here. Yeah, especially having grown up in a time, like we went from being fairly solidly middle class to my parents quit their jobs, moved to Maine, didn't have a lot of money for a while, and so we would shop at cheap outlet stores. We shopped for a lot of our clothing at thrift stores, and I think a lot of what people wear, some of the things that people wear that people make fun of, are for health reasons, you know, orthopedic reasons, because your body is shaped a certain way and you can't necessarily wear other things. So there's definitely a lot of I think socioeconomic is probably a good way to put it. Economic stuff wrapped up in fashion. And I want to be sensitive to that. It's funny. It's like, so you're going to make a fashion, like a highly charged, contentious fashion game and try and hold on to your ideals? I don't know. I think there's a way. I think there's a way to gently tease some things without being too negative or judgy about them. I think the pizza shirt is a great example of that. Like, this is... Can you see it here? Yeah, you can see it pretty good. I'll hold it up to this camera too. This is a shirt that just has a print of pepperoni, full bleed, all over the shirt. And I feel like if you are purchasing this pizza shirt to wear, you know what you're doing, right? There's no point in time where pepperoni pizza shirt is going to be the fashion norm. So that's the kind of thing that I want to play around with, is outfits that people have to intentionally, very intentionally seek out, that are kind of funny. Back to the Future 2 future fashion, right? This is exactly what I'm talking about. Oh my gosh, yes. Oh my gosh. Oh no, it's not showing up well. I want to share this Back to the Future fashion. Ah, oh, such a small picture. Okay. Welcome to the future. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to post this because this is exactly what I'm talking about. I just want everyone to know my vision. Oops. this one. Can I delete things? I guess not. That's just there forever. That's fine. Game Out says, I had weird puffy bits on the dresses I had to wear in high school in the 80s. Please don't make me do that again. At least I didn't do the big hair thing like other girls in my class. That's fair, that's fair. Jeff 2.0 says, just throwing out something I've never seen. What if low fashion set collection gets you extra points, but high fashion sets give you even better card powers? It would make ending rather chaotic. That is a very interesting idea. Because for points set collection, communicating that on cards is pretty straightforward. You just have symbols like mini versions of the things. You could have pepperoni shirt or like low fashion shirt plus pants, pepperoni shirt, pepperoni pants equals 5. You know, you can just put the numbers on there. But that's almost like a combining cards power. It makes me think of on Magic Unset, Unstable. So these were the split cards, the half, I'm just going to say the half cards is one way to do it. Alright, so there's the host and augment cards. Yeah, I'm gonna post this just speaking mechanically about combining cards and they have a different ability. I think the host and augment cards from Magic are one cool way to do that. One way to do, say, combining card powers. The flow of the game would determine what's fashionable in that shared reality. I wasn't even thinking that far ahead. And again, the goal is to look as terrible as possible, but maybe by looking as terrible as possible, you look the best. People trying to time their trades for low fashion at just the right time. That's what I'm going for. Absolutely. Figuring out how to get that really tense moment. I mean, you put it just right. It's like just the right moment. Like you really don't want the low fashion cards at any point during the game until right at the end where you transition into them. And getting that inflection point to be really interesting and satisfying. Zin PhD says you can make the high fashion look awful and the awful stuff look comfortable. I mean, comfort is another vector, is an interesting thing to consider, because often high fashion or stuff that looks good is incredibly uncomfortable. Yeah, 70s leisure wear would be the high fashion in the game, absolutely. Shoulder pads are very big in the 80s. I was thinking of something like if you have two other of the same icon, you can use this better power instead. Yeah, that is interesting. I don't know if I've seen cards that do that. Like, you get twice as much of this. Like, normally you would take one card from someone, but it would have to be twice as much plus one, so even better than doing the 2 cards individually. Augment would be cool as well. Yeah. I'm just thinking now. Actually, no, that's a lie. I'm not thinking. My brain is spacing out now. It's taking in so much data and process. It's probably chewing on it in the background, and the foreground is just like, This is some really good stuff, though. If you have any last thoughts, feel free to throw them out. I'm going to transition to a quick brainstorm to finish off the stream here, because I always like to work on a game that I'm working on actively in my own life, and then do just a completely new random brainstorm as well to round out the session. It was really fun just to think about things that have never been thought of before. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff. This has been really great. I appreciate all the ideas y'all have been sharing. Definitely pushed my mind beyond where I was having the game in the beginning. What I was considering is basically just trying to make a very simple deck building game. You have the cards, you have the powers, you're going through them. I like making simpler games. I think for this one, though, the tableau, having the stuff, trying to make your outfit in the tableau, making swaps, and then having card powers, augmented card powers. I think that's all going to help this goal that we're talking about of hitting an inflection point, which a lot of most deck builders have some sort of inflection point. A lot of them are very subtle. For Dominion, for example, you might go back and forth, get some points cards, realize you started too early, and then go back and get some more power cards, or you can kind of mess yourself up too by going into points too early and not realizing, oh, I should have waited. So the kind of game that I want to create here isn't one that's going to punish you for missing the inflection point that you would have recognized if you understood the game better. I want it to just feel more natural. Like you get a state, like you get your outfit here, and all of a sudden you just understand naturally. I want the inflection point to come naturally. That's what I'm trying to say. To grow from the other actions in the game. And I think like piecing something together can help that happen in a controlled way. So you're trying to collect pieces for your outfit, for example. It becomes clear when it's time to. Clarity of transition. Would it be overpowered to include a Snuggie card? Ultimate comfort, the absolute nadir of fashion. Yeah. I mean, that's the goal, is things along that line. Where I want it to be a funny game. I want it to be a game that makes people laugh. fun and funny, even if you don't win. It's not so much about winning, it's about seeing all the silly fashion combinations. Fashion combinations. Cool. Cool. Alright, unless anyone has any last ideas for that. I've gotten a lot of great ideas from all the stuff that you suggested. Now I just got to take that back to the drawing board. As good as having a lot of ideas is, they're still figuring out how to make all of those ideas functional and see how much I have to tear the structure apart, tear the very fabric of the game into little itty bitty pieces and just rebuild it again from the ashes of what it once was. Transparent plastic cards. Senior Bob, I don't know if you're is that a joke? See, it's interesting having done this stream for so long, coming up on a year, which is crazy to think about and also awesome. I don't know if transparent plastic cards is a reference to something that would actually be good for this game, or just because we had talked so much about transparent plastic cards for Space Botany game. Although it would be kind of fun to do, like, you have your person and then you put the outfits on them. Ooh. Oh my gosh. All right. Yeah. So next steps, take all these ideas, play around with them, try and do a few quick iterations of the prototype based on the ideas, which is fairly easy to do because I have a tool that I'm using where I can input individual card powers into a spreadsheet and then make sheets of cards based off of the stuff I've created. There's a couple of different things you can use for that. I use my friend's system that he developed, but there's a lot of commercial products like Nandeck or InDesign with a merge for it. And for this sort of a game, there's potentially a lot of cards and a lot of powers. It can be a really great way to make a prototype quickly. Oh, it's just a few of the high fashion cards that were messed up. Interesting. Then I can look at my spreadsheet and say, oh yeah, I did those values incorrectly, and I just printed it off that way without even realizing I'd done it. But yeah, making a prototype, especially this sort of game, it should work at 2 players. So if I can just sit down with one other person, do a round or two, I get a sense very quickly about whether it's completely broken or not. Oh, it was a serious thought, not a joke thought. Transparent cards, serious. Cool. Added it to the document. But yeah, we should do a brainstorm. And then I will crash and take a nap. Not really, because I still have stuff to do tonight, but still recovering. So this was fun, but also intensive. It takes a lot of mental energy to make games in real life. Live games. Okay. Unless anyone has a better idea, I'm going to use Snuggie as my brainstorm inspiration, because that is a funny word, and I'm interested to see what kind of games we could come up with based on a Snuggie brainstorm. For those of you who are new to the Twitch stream, when we do our brainstorming sessions, I put a word in the center, and then we're going to make a mind map, coming up with all sorts of ideas related to the original concept, branching out until they are less and less related to the original concept. And then at any point, if we think up any games related to these concepts, we're just gonna rapid fire write down some high level concepts for games that could be created. So we're talking about Snuggies. Wear a Snuggie, do the Dougie. Jeff 2.0 says, have to head out. Have a good night and good luck on the game. Thanks so much for checking in and thanks for your help. Always to have more people hanging out in the chat and giving awesome suggestions for the game designs we're working on here. Do the Dougie. You see, again, we're talking about not knowing what things are. I have no idea what the Dougie is. It's probably a thing that I should know as a human, but I don't know what that is. Snuggie, we're talking about it being comfortable, unfashionable. No offense to anyone, but it's not. I'm not saying this. This is Game Biologist who said, quote unquote, the nadir of fashion. I'm actually going to write that right on the page. Nadir of fashion. Snuggies are snug. Cinderbob says, I just design games like 1 step per day. Way less effort. I like that. One step per day sounds like a very focused, systematic way to do it. Instead of doing chaos mode. That's how I like to describe my personal design process. Chaos mode! Snuggies are clothing. I'm gonna put clothing? Question mark? It's kind of more like a blanket. It's because a Snuggie, it's not like a onesie, right? I'm gonna put onesie here. What's the difference between a Snuggie and a onesie? A Snuggie is more like a robe, right? It's open on the bottom. Okay. Oh wait, is it open on the bottom or is it closed on the bottom? The comfy original adult sweatshirt blanket. I guess that's the non-infringing name for it. Adult sweatshirt blanket. Alright, I already have one idea for a game for this. Matching Snuggies to their wearers. One size does not fit all. Snuggies. So it's a blanket. Is it a clothing or is it blanket? Idea the second. There we go. This or that. Is it clothing? Question mark. Is it a blanket? How do we prove what we think it is? Alright, so for the first idea, the matching one, you have a bunch of different humans, animals, toy trucks, whatever. You need to find the perfect Snuggie for whatever you're trying to clothe. What kind of a Snuggie would a wood stove wear? That is very strange. I don't know where I'm going with that. Okay, I can see a person's foot under this. So it's just like a long sweatshirt, right? Or does it, because it closes in the back, right? Sherpa wearable blanket. Oh no, this lies. Is it, because this one, I can see the person from the side and it's open in the back. Is it open? This is just a blanket with sleeves you stick your arms through. This is our learning from today's show. If you take away one thing from this show, it'll be that Emma has no idea what a Snuggie actually is. Maybe I just need to buy a Snuggie. Half of these people aren't even wearing Snuggies in this picture. The blanket that has sleeves. Okay, maybe I should watch the video. Oh, so it's not even what I thought. You don't put it over your head. You just wrap it. It's like a hospital gown. Oh my gosh. Okay. I want to pop out this video. This Snuggie commercial. Oh gosh. This is hilarious. Okay, perfect. Wow, 1 million. Almost 2 million views. Jesus Christ. Yeah, a Snuggie is just a thick hospital gown. It's not even, I thought it was even more interesting than that, but it's literally, wow, I can't believe it became this crazy thing. Just stick sleeves on a blanket. It's literally what it is. Thick hospital gown. Right. Do the Dougie. Excellent. This is important learning. Oh my gosh, stop. This is important educational resources for me. I don't know if y'all are learning as much as I am, but I'm learning a lot for this. Snuggies make me think of binge watching TV. That actually sounds kind of nice right about now. I want to binge watch TV. Maybe I should buy a Snuggie. Maybe I should ask for a Snuggie for Christmas. Or not. I don't know if I actually want that. A poncho is a blanket with 2 armholes. Some ponchos don't have armholes though, right? No, a poncho, yeah, a poncho just has the neck hole. Blankets with holes. Oh wait, do I have blankets on here? Okay. Blankets with holes, and this leads to poncho. Be another fashion game. Defining things, the game. Oh yeah, a weird fashion. I'd give the third. Weird. That would be funny if this game about inventing and marketing, maybe? Fashion trends like the Snuggie. It's an X with Y. It's a banana with toothpicks. Yeah, it'd have to be a little better put together than that, but weird mashups, maybe not just fashion, could extend beyond that. Mall shops. I had a proto Snuggie in the 70s. It was a sleeping bag with strategically placed snaps so you could fold it over to make sleeves and zip it up the front. It was this is amazing. I'm gonna have to find out. Did it have a name? What was its name though? What's the name? Blanket origami. Sure, you could snugify it, but maybe you want to fold it into a dragon instead. Like that. Even full size or life size origami. The 4th. Origami, but the pieces of paper / fabric are so huge, you need to coordinate with multiple people. Yeah, this is great. This is so weird. I'm definitely getting loopy. I'm gonna have to chill in a second because I'm just all over the place here. You broke Emma. No, this is great. Doing great. Improb.com, best wearable sleeping bags. I love this is the first time I've ever heard of this, and now here's a link. What, wearable sleeping bag? Huh. Okay. This is really great. No, this is definitely the rabbit hole that I want to be down. This is wearable sleeping bags, yeah. Because this is funny, you know, this having the wearable sleeping bag or the Snuggies in a game, I think it's ripe, it's rich territory, rich soil for planting your game ideas in. How far can you push something before it's no longer clothing? Or before it becomes clothing? What about the cone-shaped blanket thing you pull up from your feet that looks like sharks? I believe in whatever this is. What? Is that a real... Twitch just gave me bonus points for it. I'm up to 800 gumballs now. Cone-shaped blanket things. Shark feet blanket? You're gonna have to find that for me because I have no idea what you're talking. Is it the thing that you put where the shark is eating you? This one? I don't think this is what it is, but... Alright. Do we have one more game idea? One more Snuggie-based game? Okay, I think I have one. Yeah, we've got like 2 minutes left, maybe. The shark is eating you. Okay, so I think it is this thing. Any last minute Snuggie board game ideas? Let me know. I'm gonna write them down. I have one more. If anyone else has one more, I'll write that down too. We're on a roll here. Can it fit in a Snuggie? Can it Snuggie? This is like 3 different ideas. I don't know what I'm doing here. Like wrapping something into a Snuggie. Disguising things inside a Snuggie. 6 degrees of Snuggies. How can you connect a Snuggie to every other thing in existence? Definitely a game in there. 150,000 card deck. You have to collect enough to build a cardstock blanket to watch Netflix under. I guess quilting games. It's making me think. Actually speaking, making a blanket with cards. There is calico and patchwork for quilting games. It doesn't have to be paper, right? For a board. This is board game, tabletop game, I think is a good way to put it. You could have fabric bits instead of cards that you're using mechanically. Maybe you're sewing your own Snuggie. Best shows to watch while wearing a Snuggie. Rent a Snuggie when you go to the movies. Yes. Gosh, yes. Okay. How clean is your rental Snuggie? No one wants, it was gross. No one wants to get stuck with the gross rental Snuggie. Deck of granny squares. Yeah, I think that this is a little bit of a sidebar, but I like this quilting, crafting idea. I think it's a very cool theme for a game. I think with games like Patchwork and Calico are very abstract and don't necessarily capture the feeling, experience of crafting, knitting, the fabric crafts, the yarn crafts. I feel like there's a term for it. I think there's a very interesting space in there to create something that feels more like your... Even there's Arch Ravelry that came out recently too, where you have more recipes to create items. See a game that more captures... This is a cozy feeling. Like knitting is very satisfying, cozy feeling. Knitting, quilting, cross stitching, less abstract game. Run a Snuggie rental business. Try not to get people mad about how dirty the Snuggies are. Woo, we did it. Oh my gosh, we went loopy today. This has been really great. Thanks everyone for tuning into the stream. Senior Bob says the lacing activities could be a launching point for a game. Yeah. You do like the mini weaving. Lacing could be cool actually. Rope tying? There must be a rope tying game. Roped. Oh man, it reminds me, I'm about to finish up, but we don't have a great stream title for this episode, for the replay. I think, as much as I love You Look Awful, OFFAL, I don't know if that's, I don't know if I want to name the stream. Feels like it would be a stream going in a very different direction. All right, I'll think on it. I'll figure it out. Tie me up, tie me down. Sure. Cool. Well, as always, thanks everyone so much for tuning into my board game design / board game concepting stream. We had a great time working on You Look Awful. Came up with a lot of great directions for that. Really appreciate everyone's feedback. Thank you for that. Last minute Snuggie brainstorm. Have maybe not several workable design directions, but some funny ideas that with a little tweaking could maybe turn into something. So that's good. That's fun. As always, if anything in this stream inspires you, feel free to take it and run with it. It's so hard talking about ideas, and I think a lot of people get nervous or caught up with the concept of coming up with a really cool idea, worried about an idea getting stolen, like you have a really creative mechanic, you don't want someone else to use it. I think for the most part, you know, if you have a really cool mechanic and it's so cool that it should just be out in the world, then it can probably be the basis of a whole genre of games. And the other thing is, if you are making a game, as long as you're sharing, talking about it, posting it, people know that you are the person who came up with these ideas. So, long story short, I want to see more awesome games out there. I love when people come up with stuff that's in some way inspired by the kinds of things I've talked about. I love being inspired by other people, so my goal here is just to create a well of inspiration and have all sorts of unique and interesting games come out of that. Snuggie Pondering. Ooh, last minute question. So when are we coordinating the next design retreat? That is a good question. Yeah, I just got back from running a design retreat kind of last minute. It wasn't something I was originally expecting, but it went really well, even better than expected, and it's definitely something I want to do more of in the future. Yeah, main tricky part is, as this is an industry where people travel a lot and have a lot of stuff on their plates and on their schedules, figuring out how to make it work so that the most people can come. Because I know just asking people when they have open time in their schedules is going to be a disaster. You know, if I try and coordinate 20 people's schedules, it's never going to happen. So it's more about picking a time, or maybe a couple of times, asking people if they can go to either one of those, finding which of those times works best, figuring out locations. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but hopefully, I'm just like, how is it gonna have so much stuff going on? Is this really another thing that I want to take on? But I feel like it really contributes to my ability as a designer. Everything that I need and want from design is wrapped up in these design retreats. So definitely want to do that more. And I'm like, do I have my list? I have a kind of temporary list of people who have expressed interest in it. So I think it's something that I could ideally be able to do a few times a year. And definitely going to be working on that, talking with people and communicating as I go to make sure everyone who wants to be involved is involved. So yeah, look forward to that. If you have any questions about what I'm working on, design retreats, game design, what have you, always tune into the stream at Emma Larkins. You can follow and subscribe to my stream. You can also hit me up on Twitter at Emma Larkins. Always happy to chat there. And yeah. The design retreat is tongue-in-cheek. Senior Bob says, you really do want to do one. Yeah, they're fun. They're really good. A week is a long time. A week is a long time for a retreat, but I feel like having it be a week, people can go for a short, they don't have to go for the whole thing, first of all, and having it be a week, like several days in, you kind of hit a wall. So you go in there, you think you know what you're going to do, you test some stuff, you're maybe kind of holding back a little bit, but after a certain number of days, you just have a breakthrough. Like at this most recent design retreat, and this was on the last day for me, so it took a while, but I had a breakthrough where I just stopped holding back. You know, I realized how many of my designs I was just waiting for the perfect moment to work on whatever. And being able to do whatever you need at the retreat. High-level play testing, development, even just throwing some ideas around and letting people bounce things around. And like doing this, exactly, this stream, but in person is a very valuable thing. So looking forward to doing more of that. Looking forward to streaming as always. We'll be here on Thursday doing a casual game design stream, but I'm already calling Christmas Eve. Gonna take some time off and have some fun. Might do a little intermediate stream some other time. I'll figure that out. But for now, I'm gonna sign off. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you all around the table. Bye.